Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Creeps, Creatures, and Haunts.
Oh my.
In today's episode, we will be talking about Mothman. No, we've mentioned Mothman in other videos, like when we did our video on the Men in Black. So we will kind of mention that a little bit, but we won't be focusing on that aspect. But I guess I didn't realize, there's so much, and then we're not going to talk about all of it, but there's a lot more to the sightings and just the depth of which they go than I guess I originally realized until really starting to looking into this for doing this episode. So, if you're a fan of all things Mothman, then you'll probably enjoy this episode. We've been trying to do more popular things lately, just to try and get more people to be able to view and listen to the podcast. We will probably be doing some more obscure stuff as well in the future, so it's not always going to be the more popular things. But Mothman is kind of a personal favorite of mine. I've always found it fascinating since I was a wee tot and first found out about it. We have not been to Point Pleasant, but we really want to get there.
Hopefully this spring or summer, or maybe we'll go for the festival.
Well, that's what I'd like, but the festival's in the fall, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, which just sucks because, me and Kim always have so many things in the fall because we do Haunt Talk, if you're unaware. That's one of the biggest things on our channel, so we go to different haunted houses and review them and whatnot. So, but man, what I really like to go to this festival. It looks like so much fun. And we'll be talking more about Point Pleasant and, how into the Mothman that they are.
Yeah.
It's really something. It's really something else.
There's a statue and a museum.
Yeah.
And a bunch of other stuff there.
Bunch of other
stuff.
Kind of
crazy.
Oh, yeah. So we'll talk a little more about that when we get into it here. Some things before the episode begins, as we've been, telling everyone, if you're listening to it, make sure you leave us that review on Apple Podcast, at least. I think Spotify said they're going to be starting to allow reviews soon. So if you're listening to us in the future and Spotify allows that, you should leave us a review. That would be awesome. Helps us in this, come up when people search and stuff like that in Apple Podcasts. Yeah, give us a 5-star. Also type something in there. That's nice. That's cool, too. Yeah. We also have a merch line now if you want our logo on some t-shirts or mugs or whatever. I don't think we have wine glasses on there yet because they don't have that on there yet, but I think there's etched glasses. But yeah, if you want shirts or hoodies or a tote bag, whatever, we have all kinds of stuff on the merch store. That's in the links. You want to join a Patreon to help support us, that's there. You can also be the YouTube channel member. It's $5 a month. You get special badges and emotes, all of that kind of stuff. It's greatly appreciated and helps us out a lot. But yeah, that being said, I suppose we will start talking about this thing, kind of going from the origins of it into more the recent stuff. I have a fair amount of things for us to basically just be yammering on about here. So let's talk about Mothboy. So the first time he was ever sighted was in 1966. He is depicted as, the color I guess varies, but it's usually a gray to brown color, but everyone agrees that he's 6 to 8 feet tall with an 8 to 15 foot wingspan. So that's very large. Also, hilarious note, and if I'll insert a picture here if you're watching video form. The statue for Mothman in Point Pleasant is hilarious. He's ripped.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
He's ripped and he has a nice ass. A nice supple ass.
But his wings are weird. His wings are like butterfly wings. It's kind of weird.
And he looks just like a man with wings on it, honestly. Yeah. But the descriptions just basically describe him, and I'll get more into it, but is not even having a neck. He's kind of like a moth. He's his face is on his chest.
Well, because he's like a moth, and moths usually are just a tube with wings.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, I just found that interesting. The statue is not really an accurate representation of any eyewitness accounts.
Yeah.
Which I find kind of hilarious.
Artistic license, I guess.
Yeah, and of course, his red glowing eyes is a pretty big thing that everyone agrees on, is seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get more into that in a minute. But, so the first time he was actually seen, which I said was in 1966, he was seen at an old World War II testing facility where they used to do explosives and stuff like that. So it was obviously a defunct facility at the time. Steve Millett, Roger Scarberry, Mary Millett, and Linda Scarberry, so these are couples, were driving through the TNT area when the two saw a figure at the entrance of the TNT plant. So the couples, they saw the figure there. At first they just thought it was a man, but then noticed it did not have any arms or a head. So again, the statue shows it having a clear head attached to a neck with arms, and it does not, according to them at least. And they're the original ones that saw it. So
Yeah.
they then took off in their cars after seeing the creature, as you do. However, as they were driving towards Highway 62, they saw the Mothman in front of them, and I guess he took off into the air, and they floored it. They got up to, I guess, 100 miles an hour, and Mothman was keeping up with their car and supposedly scraping at the top as well. So this thing can fly, and it can fly fast, according to them. Once they got closer to the town, however, it basically did let up and, wasn't bothering them anymore. Surprisingly, the story can be a little bit different than others. They decided to return later on that night to see if they could see it again. Now, if something was clawing at the top of my car, clawing at the roof of it, I don't know if I would drive back to see.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, hey, let's go check out that dude. Maybe,
Because apparently they stated that they thought about going to authorities then, but they were like, I don't know, maybe we're just crazy, basically.
Yeah, maybe it's just a joke or something.
So we're gonna go check it out. When they returned, they actually did see it again. This time he was stumbling around in a small pasture, is what they said. Did not chase them this time, but then they did leave, and they went directly to Mason County Courthouse to file a report. Millard Halstead, who's the deputy, so Deputy Halstead, took the report, and he knew them personally, and he actually did believe them as their statement being honest and not basically a hoax. And the handwritten report that he made is actually on display in the museum at Point Pleasant. I think that would be kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
To see the handwritten report of the very first ever report of Mothman. Because if you know anything about Mothman, there are now a lot of reports over the years. They returned with the deputy actually to the site. They did not see Mothman, but they did see evidence like hoof prints, weird dust spots, I guess, where he was. I don't really know why, but yeah, I guess it was dusty where he was or something. I mean, moths are dusty, I don't know. And they also heard strange shadows and noises. So that's kind of interesting too. So they're saying, that they heard strange shadows and noises, but not Mothman. So maybe Mothman was roaming in the shadows or something?
Maybe. I know one of the big things is that they always say that it's a sign that something bad is going to happen.
Oh yeah, Linda Scarberry, I'm not really sure it's your last name. I think it's Scarberry, was treated for shock and claimed she had gotten weird phone calls and visits from the Men in Black, who would intimidate her. Now, if you want to know more about the Men in Black, again, you can go listen to or watch that episode that we did. It was last year sometime that we did the whole episode on the Men in Black. Mm-hmm. But they were tied to this event a fair amount. They kind of antagonized people of Point Pleasant a fair amount during this time frame. The morning after the Mothman sighting, the Mason County Sheriff George Johnson held a press conference, and after that, the story started getting popular. The term Mothman was actually dubbed by the public because of the immense popularity of Batman at the time. So obviously these people didn't just go in and report, we saw Mothman. There wasn't a name for it. It was we saw this weird creature.
We saw this thing that looked kind of like a moth and a man. They probably were like, oh, a Mothman.
Right, yeah, because it did kind of, I think there's the description with the head basically being part of the chest and that it sounds mothy. Sightings began to escalate. Police actually estimate over 1,000 people were looking for Mothman until midnight each night during this time frame.
Wow.
Which seems insane that many people for that time, because this is before, obviously it's the 60s, before ghost hunting shows and stuff like that. But people are so enthralled by the sightings. And let's also put in perspective that Point Pleasant's a pretty small town.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot going on there.
Right.
So all these people are looking you have to imagine I live in a small town, and it's just kind of when something like that happens, you kind of want to be a part of it because you're well, life's not super interesting here, and especially not in the 60s. So people are well, we're going to go look for Mothman. What else do we have to do tonight? Let's go try and find this creature, this cryptid, if you will, that people are talking about. Marcel Bennett and her family also encountered Mothman, stating he was just chilling when they saw him. He was basically just leading, I think he was just basically standing there. Didn't really do much or anything, but they also described him as the head and the neck were, basically just one. So, his head was just part of the body. So it kind of coincides with what the others are saying. And she also suffered from paranoia and anxiety after seeing it. She said she could feel his presence and developed the ability to have visions and other psychic abilities after seeing it. This is fairly popular from other witnesses who have seen Mothman. They claim to get premonitions and stuff like that. That entire questionable movie with Richard Gere in it.
Oh, yeah,
the Mothman prophecy is based around that statement, basically, that people would, start to have psychic abilities after seeing this thing. So I mean, now there's a whole bunch of theories in what Mothman is, of course. So some people think because of the fact he was in a facility that did dabble with radiation and stuff, that maybe he was a mutant.
Yeah.
But then maybe he's an alien, or maybe even an interdimensional being, because now people, if he's just a mutant, why would he basically bestow upon you the gift of psychic ability?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
The sightings around Point Pleasant stopped after the collapse of the Silver Bridge on December 15th, 1967. Many eyewitnesses said that they got a sense of impending doom and tragedy when they saw Mothman. Some claimed to have seen Mothman on the bridge shortly before it collapsed. 46 people died, and it still has been, to this day, the worst bridge disaster in U.S. history. So, I mean, like I said, some people even, stated that they saw Mothman on this bridge, and this is what the movie, what Mothman Prophecies is about, is, he's getting, visions of this bridge disaster happening.
Oh,
I do, but it's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but that's basically...
I've seen only bits and pieces of it.
But that's basically the premise of it, is, that Richard Gere's character is getting these premonitions because I don't remember if he came in contact with Mothman or not. Again, it's been a long time since I've seen the movie, but that's what it's based off of. There was another bridge collapse actually in 2007 that's been linked to Mothman. The I-35 West Mississippi River Bridge, what a name, in Minnesota. And leading up to the collapse of that bridge, there were numerous reports and sightings of Mothman. It buckled during rush hour, very similar in the way that the Silver Bridge collapsed. Only 13 died, I mean, that's still a lot, but 13 died and 145 were injured. Most eyewitnesses to the Mothman during this time came forth after the collapse, claiming they hadn't spoke up before for fear of being ridiculed. And one woman stated that she saw Mothman actually on the bridge as well, just kind of like Point Pleasant. So, I mean, it's interesting to me, that so many people came forth after that bridge collapsed.
Wow.
Because it's just did they see it? Or, is it people kind of when tragedy happens, are trying to put a blame on it because that's just, we're trying to rational something. So, that's the same reason, we blame a god or something like that bad when it happens. And it could be a similar type of situation, obviously, with Point Pleasant. You have this group of kids that saw whatever it is they saw. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you start having all these other people, see it. Yeah. And then this bridge tragedy happens. But it is interesting that after the bridge tragedy happened, Mothman wasn't really sighted again for quite some time. Mm-hmm. It just kind of went silent. And that's what's kind of interesting to me. It's I wouldn't call most of anything about the Mothman a hoax, but some of it definitely can be boiled down to possible mass hysteria.
Yeah.
And people you kind of might see something or hear something weird, and then if something kind of slightly correlates it, your brain might go oh, well, it must have been Mothman that I saw or heard. And then, human beings do their human being things and kind of spiral the story, and it turns into something completely different. Something interesting that I personally have never heard of was that, Mothman, I guess, is there's been examples of him throughout the world, not just the United States. In Germany, there's a creature that goes by the name of the Freiburg Shrieker. In 1978, some miners were trying to enter the mine when a large winged creature, and there's 4 of them, I think it was, blocked the path and made horrible screeching noises. As stated by one of the men, it sounded like 50 men screaming at once combined with the sound of a train's emergency brakes. So it didn't sound great. The miners fled, but they still stayed in the vicinity. An hour later, the mine was rocked by an explosion which caused it to collapse. If they had been in there, they all would have died.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of another thing, where he's almost like this harbinger of doom, almost trying to warn.
He's preventing them from dying. That's cool.
However, even though they were essentially saved by the Shrieker, months later, almost a third of the men developed serious mental disorders, not uncommon with many other people, again, that have witnessed Mothman. Because that's kind of like the thing. You either, like, become psychic or you become, like, insane. Paranoid. Yeah, and, like, super anxious all the time. Or both.
Wow.
Yeah. And then all over the world, there were basically countless sightings until about 1994, and then things went quiet for a while. And then, so, like, the next thing I think after 1994 would have been in 2007 when, I said about the Mississippi River Bridge collapsing. Mm-hmm. And interesting enough, too, in Japan of 2011, that earthquake and following tsunami from the subsequent Fukushima nuclear plant disaster is supposedly also associated with Mothman.
Oh, wow.
Days after reports started spreading from locals, days after it happened, reports started spreading from locals of a Mothman-like creature being spotted around the area. Actually, like, I think most of these sightings, it sounds like, was before the explosion happened. But again, like the last bridge, like, people really didn't talk about it. And then, like, after the explosion happened, there started being, like, talk between people, like, well, actually, yeah, we saw that thing too. But one report claimed that there was a group of 4 friends, and when they were out looking at the area, this again was before that the nuclear power plant actually exploded, they were looking into the effect of the nuclear power plant's waste heat on the nearby environment. They heard, like, the group was out there and they heard, like, these horrible scratching sounds, and they noticed that basically they saw the creature, the Mothman, I guess, if you will, sitting on top of the power plant. And once they kind of, like, looked at it for a while, it flew directly over them. And this was 2 weeks before the meltdown. All of them claimed to have had a terrible sense of dread as it actually flew above them. So, I mean, this isn't a bridge, but still, they like seeing this thing in the area where something bad happened in the coming weeks. In 2016, someone claimed to have taken a photo of Mothman, but it was not convincing at all. It kind of went viral there. If I can find the picture, I'll put it in, but it's real stupid looking. It's been shown in a couple of the ghost shows. It's more than likely just a hoax. But an outbreak of sightings started happening in Chicago, actually, like a lot of sightings in Chicago, between April 7th, 2017 and July 29th, 2017. There were over 20 reports of a winged humanoid, almost always at night, near the water. Altogether, there's 55 different reports in 2017, though,
wow,
of seeing this, like, winged creature. And they actually had some of these people on. It was a fairly recent episode of, what's that show with Josh Gates as well that we like?
Expedition Unknown and X. And...
I think it's X is the new one that's on Discovery.
Yeah.
Plus, what they went, and if you remember, like, the guy literally has, like, this flapping creature. He, like, thought it was, like, he saw this thing by a plane, and it was, like, this giant creature with wings, like, flying. And another person saw, like, one of, like, the skyscrapers in Chicago, it just sitting up top of there like it was a gargoyle before it, like, flew away.
Yeah.
I don't think anything bad's happened in Chicago. I mean, that was back in 2017, so maybe it gave someone, like, the psychic visions and people actually listened. I don't know.
Maybe.
But, yeah. And, there's still been quite a few reports. I know there were some I read about, like, that even happened as, like, late as, like, 20, or as early, or, yeah, recent as 2020. So there's a lot of theories on what Mothman might be, because I was even, like, reading where some people think he might be, like, a demon or an angel, because, like, back in, like, historical texts and stuff, that angels and demons can basically be a harbinger of, like, doom and, like, heed warnings and, and, like, bring warnings and stuff like that. So people think that Mothman could be, like, maybe an angel, or maybe he's even a demon of some sort, which I guess that would fall into the category of interdimensional being.
Yeah.
I like, some skeptics say that they really think that people are just, like, confusing an owl or a sandhill crane, because sandhill cranes do have, like, a really huge wingspan, I guess.
Oh, yeah, they're really big.
And, like, owl's eyes, like, do glow red if you shine a light on it. And the one girl herself even stated that, like, his eyes were only red, like, when the lights hit it. But still, like, there's no way you're going to mistake something 8 feet tall. Like, nothing else is that tall like that.
Yeah.
Wingspan, maybe. But, like, flying, like, a man-sized creature flying around and scraping at your roof, like, it either happened or it didn't, something like
Yeah.
that. You know what I mean? It either happened or it's just a lie. There's no mistaking an owl or something for, especially the first account. Sure,
Yeah.
maybe some of the hysteria accounts after the press released it, sure, some of that could have been baloney. Like, people might have, because there's a lot of reports of just seeing red eyes out of people's windows. Okay, maybe that was an owl. Who knows? But,
Yeah.
like, the original report here, I don't think there's any way, like I said, it's either completely fake or something crazy happened. It's one of the two, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with that, because it just seems like way too many people have seen the same thing without having known, like, what the other person had seen, and it just seems like there's got to be something to it.
Yeah, I would really think so. Now, as we were talking about earlier, again, Point Pleasant is a small little town, and there's not lots of reasons to go there. Well, now there is, because there's Mothman stuff.
Man.
There's the festival, like Kim said, and they really ham it up. And I mean, why wouldn't you? Just like I forget what the name of the place is that, like, really hams up Bigfoot. Something Creek. I can't think of it now.
Oh, yeah.
Comment below the name of it. There's an entire movie that I own that's based about it, which is a really cool movie.
Willow Creek.
Willow Creek, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the real name of it. But that's what the fake documentary that Bobcat Goldthwait made, which is actually a really good found footage film.
Good.
It's really underrated. You should watch it. It's a real freaky. If you're into, like, Blair Witch and stuff, you should watch this movie. It's, like I said, there's not a lot of action. It's real low budget, but I think it makes it more believable.
Yeah.
But they go to some of those places because, like, some of the people that are being interviewed in that, now I'm a tangent on, like, the Bigfoot thing, but a lot of the people that were being interviewed didn't know it was, like, a fake documentary. Because, like, parts of it are real, like, because that was the whole thing, is they're going there to make a little fun documentary.
Yeah.
And so they are actually interviewing people with real Bigfoot encounters, but then, like, at the end, like, that part's, is fictional.
Yeah.
But anyways, they kind of have a similar thing as that town, where there's even a cafe that sells, I think they're, like, little chocolate balls called, like, Mothman droppings. They have, like, Mothman cookies. There's the Mothman Museum. They have the whole festival. I mean, a giant statue, 8-foot statue that sits in the middle of the town. Like, they really are using Mothman as, like, a draw into their, little town.
There's a place in Cleveland that actually has Santa Mothman. During the holiday season, you can have your photo taken with Santa Mothman. And it's basically very close to what the actual description of Mothman is, where it's that, just like that no neck blobby thing with black, it's like all black, and then it's got the red beady eyes and stuff, and then they just pop a Santa hat on it, but it's like a person in the costume.
It's funny.
Kind of funny.
Yeah, it's amazing how, I would say Mothman has to be, like, right up there with Bigfoot. Is like, but Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, Mothman, they're some of the most popular cryptids, but Mothman I just feel is a little bit more interesting than those, because, like, Bigfoot's just a smelly thing in the woods, and then Nessie is, like, maybe a dinosaur that's in a lake. But this thing, like, who knows what it is? I mean,
and it's been, like, all over the place. Whereas,
and so, like, I believe there has to be at least some truth to this thing in some way or another, because so many people have seen it. There's been, like, many correlations with, like, the 2 different bridges and then the power plant. There's other things out there you can find as well. We're just, like, giving examples here of some of the more popular things. So, like, yeah, I'm sure, again, that not all of the millions, thousands, whatever accounts are correct or true.
Right.
But if even a couple of them are, what is this thing?
Yeah.
I'm kind of more in the camp that it is kind of like some interdimensional being. But, because that was another thing on Point Pleasant, though, I guess, is during the time, like, there's UFO sightings, and that a lot. Like, during that time frame, there's UFO sightings. There was, actually, I think I skipped over that part that I had. Where is it? Paranormal things were documented in the whole town. Interrupted police dispatches, malfunctioning electrical appliances, doors opening and closing by themselves, increased UFO sightings, malfunctioning cars, and this was the entire town, not just, like, one person. So it's kind of like, maybe, again, mass hysteria, like, these things just happen, and then people are just like, Mothman. Like, maybe not UFO sightings, but I guess you could mistake things as UFOs, but it's kind of weird that all this stuff is correlated to it. There's also people that have stated that after seeing Mothman, like, they basically would, like, see things in their house moving around and stuff. Like, you see Mothman, then paranormal stuff, like, follows you home, basically. So, I mean, if I'm taking any of this as truth, My theory would be, yeah, he's some kind of weird interdimensional being. I don't think he's a mutant. That doesn't seem to make sense.
No.
Because he kind of just seems to exist when he needs to exist.
Yeah, like he just pops in and says, "Hey, bad shit's gonna happen,"
So, yeah,
and
maybe,
then he disappears.
So maybe it is like some kind of like angel / demon / just otherworldly creature. I really don't know if I believe in angels and demons necessarily. But yeah, some otherworldly creature that exists outside of what we know of time, and is trying to like warn humans of things to come.
Yeah.
Maybe. Again, who knows? I think it's funny this thing is so popular that there's a recent video game I was playing called Shin Megami Tensei 5, and it's kind of like this game if you don't play video games at all, but you can, similar to like Pokemon but with demons. And Mothman's one of the like creatures you can catch and like fight with and stuff, and I just think that's funny. This is like a Japanese made game too, but what I mean, obviously he's in Japan culture, because yeah, Mothman's not exclusive to the US, and I didn't really know that other countries had really reported seeing Mothman either.
I didn't realize that.
I'm sure there's other cool Mothman stories too. If there's any cool Mothman stories we didn't cover, let us know. Maybe you're a viewer and you were searching Mothman because you've had your own Mothman experience. Let us know about it,
Yeah.
If you don't want to like comment it, if you're watching the YouTube video, you don't have to, but we always have all of our links in both the podcast and YouTube, where you can like send us emails, you can message on Facebook, whatever you want to do. And of course, if you like listening to us cover cryptids and stuff like that, let us know what it is, what your favorite thing that we talk about on this podcast is.
Okay.
Kind of helps us know where to like gear the content for what people like the most, what they dislike, and all of that good stuff. But I think that pretty much wraps it up for Mothman. I mean, there's a lot more we could talk about, but that's kind of the basis of it. That's kind of some things that I found interesting that I didn't know as well. As always, make sure you like the video, make sure you subscribe, and also make sure you click that bell. So you don't miss any upcoming videos, because YouTube does not like to notify you unless you have that on. Thank you very much for watching and or listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.